Adrian Cole burst into the nursery, heart pounding so violently he thought it might leap out his chest. The sharp cries of his 2-month-old son, Leo, cut through the quiet mansion like a knife, and instinct propelled him faster than his mind could think. But when he rounded the corner and saw her, Rose Bennett, the young maid, bent over his crib, her mouth pressed to his son's lips, he froze. His pulse slammed against his skull, a mixture of disbelief, anger, and something he didn't want to admit. Shock. "What are you doing?" he demanded, his voice raw and brittle. Leo's wails paused as if he knew something dangerous was in the air. Rose froze too, her eyes wide, shimmering with tears, and a trembling, I didn't know what else to do, barely escaped her lips. Adrian's fists clenched at his sides. "You! How could you, without asking me?" He wouldn't drink the bottle," she cried, her voice breaking. He was crying, burning up. I didn't know what else to do. Please, he's your son." Adrian's mind spun. She had her own child recently, didn't she? The tragedy that consumed her was whispered about by the staff. Could she really? And yet here she was, acting like some intruder into his life, into the life of the child he was supposed to protect at all costs. "Step back," he said sharply, though every fiber of him wanted to run to his son. Step away from him. She flinched, clutching Leo closer. He was choking. His fever was rising. "I swear, I only wanted to help." Adrian swallowed, the bile of fear and pride mixing in his throat. He had never felt more helpless. His wife, Amelia, had died giving birth to this child. He had promised himself he would never let anything happen to Leo, and yet here was a woman, trembling and desperate, holding his son as though she owned him. Rose's tears streaked her pale face. "I know you hate me now. I know I'm not supposed to touch him, but I couldn't just let him suffer. I couldn't." Adrian's chest tightened. He wanted to yell, to grab Leo and flee, to protect him from what he perceived as danger. But the moment he took a step forward, Leo's small arms wrapped instinctively around Rose's neck, clinging to her like a lifeline. Adrian's heart lurched in an unfamiliar, uncomfortable way. For a brief, suspended second, everything else fell away, the mansion, the staff, the whispered rumors. There was only Leo, trusting Rose, desperate, alive because of her. A sharp voice echoed down the hall. "Sir, is everything okay?" Mrs. Doyle, his head housekeeper, appeared, concern etched deep on her face. "I found her nursing him," Adrian said, his voice tight, almost accusatory. Mrs. Doyle's eyes flicked to Rose, then back to Adrian. She didn't gasp. Instead, she spoke with quiet authority. "Sir, I believe she saved him." Adrian's glare could have cut steel. "Saved him? How?" By breaking every rule in this house." She acted instinctively. Mrs. Doyle said calmly, "Sir, Leo was in danger. He needed help immediately, and she, Rose, was the only one present to help him." Adrian staggered backward, his mind a storm. "You expect me to thank her for this? For touching my son without permission?" "She saved his life," Mrs. Doyle repeated. "Sometimes instinct matters more than protocol." Rose shook, clutching Leo as though he were the only thing tethering her to reality. "I didn't do it for you," she whispered. "I did it for him. I couldn't stand by. I couldn't." Adrian's chest ached, a mixture of rage, relief, and shame. He had wanted control, certainty, security. And yet here in front of him was proof that life was messy, unpredictable, and raw. "Go to your quarters," Adrian said finally, his voice low, more controlled than he felt. "Now." Rose hesitated, her lips trembling. I'm sorry." Adrian didn't respond. He turned sharply and walked down the hall, leaving a trail of silent questions behind him. Questions he didn't want to ask but couldn't escape. What kind of woman could do something like that? What did it mean that Leo trusted her? And why? Why did part of him feel unsettled, as though something inside him had shifted? That night, Adrian couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Rose's tear-streaked face, the way Leo's tiny hands had clutched hers, the sound of his cries quieting only when she held him. He hated himself for the part of him that wanted to punish her for stepping in. He hated himself even more for the part of him that couldn't stop thinking about her. By dawn, exhaustion had crept under his skin, but he couldn't rest. He needed answers. He needed control. And most of all, he needed to understand why his chest felt like it was being squeezed in ways he didn't want to feel. At breakfast, the staff whispered behind his back, rumors flying about the incident in the nursery. Adrian's reputation, his pride, his careful image, all seemed suddenly fragile. He clenched his jaw. This was exactly why he hated losing control. Then came a knock on his office door. Mrs. Doyle entered quietly. "Sir, I need to talk to you." Adrian gestured for her to speak. She hesitated, then laid a tablet in front of him. "I reviewed Leo's vitals from last night. If Rose hadn't intervened, he wouldn't have made it through until morning." Adrian stared at the screen, shock rendering him speechless. The rage inside him began to crumble into something darker. Regret. "Why didn't she tell me?" he asked finally. "She didn't want your anger," Mrs. Doyle replied softly. "Sir, sometimes people act out of love, not permission." Adrian's hand trembled slightly as he processed it. Love, not permission. He thought about Rose holding Leo, soothing him, saving him when no one else could or would. And suddenly, the walls of his pride began to feel like they were closing in, suffocating him. He had been so sure he knew how to protect his son, so sure he could control everything. And yet he had almost lost him, not to accident, but to neglect. And the person who had saved Leo was standing right there, trembling, terrified of his judgment, carrying her own grief like a hidden weight. Adrian leaned back in his chair, his fists unclenched, and he whispered to himself, "What have I done?" He looked up, imagining the impossible. Rose leaving, Leo suffering, and himself left with nothing but his pride. And then, almost involuntarily, he spoke aloud, as if confessing to the empty room, "I can't lose her. Not like this. Not today." Hello, beautiful readers. Thank you so much for clicking on my story. Where are you watching/reading from right now? And what's the weather like there today? If you're loving this story, please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. You won't want to miss what happens next. Also turn on the notification bells because I have something surprising for you tomorrow. He pushed back from the desk, determination setting in. Whatever it took, he would find a way to make things right. Even if it meant facing his own fears, his own mistakes, and the truth he had been avoiding. That saving his son's life might mean opening his heart in ways he had never dared before. And in that quiet, sunlit office, the billionaire realized that the next step wasn't control or wealth or reputation. It was courage, the courage to trust, the courage to forgive, and perhaps the courage to love. The day passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls, but Adrian's mind refused to settle. Every time he tried to focus on contracts or investments, he saw Rose's face, her arms holding Leo, her tears streaked down her cheeks. Every time he closed his eyes, he imagined what would have happened if she hadn't been there. His pride battled with gratitude, guilt tangled with fear, and through it all, a quiet, persistent pull toward her lingered. By evening, he found himself wandering the halls of Colhis Manor, drawn to the nursery despite himself. The room was empty, Leo asleep in his crib, but restless, small whimpers escaping even to the closed door. Adrian's steps faltered as he looked at the door, imagining Rose's gentle hands, soothing the baby just hours ago. He opened it slowly, half hoping, half dreading to see her again. She wasn't there. Instead, there were whispers in the staff, half-hidden, anxious conversations about how the maid had gone, about how the billionaire was furious, about how the baby had almost suffered because of her. Adrian's chest tightened, rage bubbling up, but mingled with something deeper. Fear. Fear that he had made a terrible mistake. He sank into the nursery chair, Leo shifting restlessly in the crib, and muttered, "What have I done?" The next morning, the consequences became horrifyingly clear. Leo refused to eat. His tiny body trembled, his skin pale and clammy. Even the best formula, prepared meticulously, was rejected. Nurses reported him crying inconsolably, every whimper a dagger in Adrian's heart. Adrian paced the hospital corridor outside the NICU, refusing to sit. The doctor, a calm woman named Dr. Lillian Reyes, approached with a clipboard. "Mr. Cole, the tests are fine physically. No fever, no infection. But emotionally, he's in crisis. He's showing signs of severe caregiver separation trauma." Adrian froze, the words sinking like stones. Separation trauma? Infants form attachments quickly, Dr. Reyes explained softly. When a trusted caregiver disappears suddenly, especially one who's been providing emotional comfort, the infant can reject food, refuse sleep, even show distress physiologically. It's rare, but it happens, and it's happening now with Leo. Adrian's chest tightened. "You're saying he misses her?" "Yes. The person he bonded with, her absence, is causing real stress. It's impacting his health." His stomach lurched. Memories of Rose's face flooded back. The way Leo had relaxed in her arms, how she had soothed him when no one else could. Adrian's pride and suspicion had forced her out, and now his son was paying the price. Guilt burned hotter than any anger he had felt toward her. "I have to find her," he whispered, determination replacing the weight of shame. He left the hospital and returned to Colehurst Manor, scanning for any clue of her whereabouts. Staff were evasive. She hadn't returned. The streets, the shelters, the city, it was like she had vanished. Adrian's mind refused to accept defeat. She was the key to Leo's recovery. He had to find her. Days passed. Each one stretched longer than the last. Phone calls went unanswered. Adrian's anxiety escalated. Leo's cries haunted him even in dreams. The billionaire, used to controlling empires with single call, felt powerless. Every investment, every acquisition, every deal felt meaningless compared to the tiny life slipping further from him. Then came a break, a tip from a shelter administrator. A young woman matching Rose's description had checked in, sick, weak, barely eating. Adrian's heart pounded as he drove through the city streets, the world blurring around him. He barely noticed the honking cars, the neon lights, the drizzle of rain. All he saw was her fragile form, the woman who had saved his son, and now seemed on the brink of collapse herself. He found her lying on a cot, shivering beneath a threadbare blanket. Her eyes widened in recognition. You came for me?" she whispered. Her voice was hoarse, fragile, tinged with disbelief. "Yes," Adrian said, kneeling beside her. His voice shook despite his attempt at authority. "Leo needs you. He's suffering without you. Please, Rose, please come back with me." Rose's hands clenched the blanket around her chest. "Why should I? You fired me. You accused me. You—" "I know," Adrian said quickly. "I was wrong. Every word, every action, I regret it. I judge you out of fear, pride, and ignorance. I see that now. But Leo, he needs you, and I need to make this right. Will you trust me?" Her gaze softened, conflicted. She looked away for a long moment, then finally nodded, fragile and tentative. I'll come, but I'm scared. I can't lose him or my heart again." "You won't," Adrian promised, his voice steady. "Not while I'm alive." When they returned to the hospital, the transformation was immediate. The moment Leo heard her voice, he stirred, eyes widening as if recognizing a familiar, safe world. Rose approached slowly, her hand extended, trembling. Leo reached for her instinctively. She picked him up, cradling him gently against her chest. "Shoo, it's okay, baby," she whispered. Her voice was soft but commanding, full of the quiet authority of someone who had cared for this life fiercely and selflessly. Adrian watched, heart hammering in his chest. For the first time in days, Leo's cries softened, replaced by gurgles and hiccups of relief. The doctor, Dr. Reyes, observed quietly from the doorway, nodding in approval. "See? Emotional bonds are as critical as nutrition. This is exactly what he needed." Adrian swallowed hard. "I owe you more than I can ever explain." Rose glanced up at him, her own eyes shimmering. "You don't owe me anything. I did what any mother or anyone with a heart would do." Adrian shook his head. "No, you went above any expectation. You saved him. And I judged you. Wrongly. I can't take that back, but I can make sure you're never alone again." She looked at him with a mixture of relief, caution, and curiosity. Never alone? Yes, he said. I want you to stay. Not just here, in this house, but with us. With Leo. With me. Her lips quivered. I don't know if I can trust that so easily. You won't have to trust my words alone, he replied. I'll show you, day by day, moment by moment, until you see the truth. And in that small, bright hospital room, a fragile thread began to form between them. Not romance yet, not complete trust, but the first spark of understanding, forgiveness, and perhaps the start of healing. The next few days at the hospital were a whirlwind of quiet miracles and tense observation. Every cry, every hiccup, every tiny flutter of Leo's eyelids was now a pulse of life that Adrian clung to with desperate intensity. Rose stayed close, a constant, grounding presence, her hand steady, her voice soothing. Adrian watched her care for his son with awe and a twinge of guilt he couldn't shake. One afternoon, Adrian's phone buzzed. A message from Mrs. Doyle. Sir, you need to see this. Now. Attached were security footage clips from the nursery before Rose's intervention. Adrian's stomach tightened as he opened them. Kira, the nanny who had been supposed to care for Leo, was seen rifling through bottles, ignoring alarms, and even slipping medications into her purse. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. Not only had he misjudged Rose, but he had also trusted the wrong person completely. Damn it, he muttered under his breath. All this time, and I doubted her? Dr. Reyes approached cautiously. Mr. Cole, it's critical you understand the impact of neglect on infants. Emotional trauma is as damaging as physical illness. You saw it in Leo. That bond he formed with Rose was literal survival. Adrian's fists clenched. And I sent her away. I sent the only person who could save him. That night, he couldn't sleep again. He walked the halls of the hospital, stopping outside Leo's room, staring at the baby's tiny chest rising and falling. He thought of Rose, wondering if she was still thinking of him, of Leo, of what had happened. Guilt gnawed at him, relentless and consuming. The next morning, he went out into the city, following every lead Mrs. Doyle had given him. Shelters, cafes, streets where she might have gone. He left no stone unturned. Hours passed, rain soaking through his expensive suit, shoes squelching against the wet pavement. But he didn't care. Every second without her care for Leo felt like an eternity. Finally, in a dim corner of a small shelter, he found her. Rose sat on a thin cot, wrapped in a worn blanket, pale and shivering. She looked up when he approached, eyes widening in disbelief and fear. I didn't expect you, she whispered, voice trembling. I told you, Adrian said, kneeling beside her, rain dripping from his hair. Leo needs you. I need to make this right. Please, will you come back? Her hands trembled as she clutched her chest. Why should I? You judged me. You threw me out. You! I know, he interrupted softly. I was wrong. Every word, every decision, I judged out of fear and pride. I can't take back what I did, but I can make sure it never happens again. Please, I'm begging you. Tears welled in her eyes. She looked at him, searching his face for truth, for sincerity, for anything that could convince her he wasn't just saying what he thought she wanted to hear. After what felt like an eternity, she finally nodded, fragile but resolute. I'll come back, but I'm scared. I can't lose him again or myself. You won't, Adrian said, voice unwavering. Not while I'm here. Not ever again. Returning to the hospital, they were met with anxious faces. Dr. Reyes observed quietly as Rose approached Leo's crib. The baby's small eyes opened, recognizing her immediately. His lips parted in a small gurgle, and he reached out instinctively. Rose picked him up, cradling him against her chest. It's okay, baby. It's okay, she whispered softly. And just like that, Leo's cries softened, his tiny body relaxing. His heartbeat steadied. His world, chaotic and frightening only hours ago, found a calm center in her presence. Adrian watched, emotions crashing over him. Relief, awe, guilt, and something he refused to name but felt deep in his chest. He had thought saving his son was about protection and control. Now he realized it was about trust, love, and understanding. Over the next days, Adrian worked to make amends publicly. He addressed the staff, clearing Rose's name, exposing Kira's betrayal, and taking full responsibility for misjudging the situation. The mansion, once tense and cold, gradually became warmer. Smiles returned to the staff. Laughter softened the hallways, and Adrian saw in Rose not just a woman who saved his son, but someone he could trust completely. Late one evening, as Rose sat beside Leo's crib, gently rocking him to sleep, Adrian approached quietly. "You did more than save him," he whispered, voice soft. "You've saved me too. I don't know how to thank you enough." She looked up at him, eyes shining with exhaustion and relief. "You don't have to. I did it because I had to, because he needed me." Adrian hesitated, searching for the right words. "I want you to stay. Not just here in the hospital, not just with Leo, but with us, with me." Her gaze flickered with uncertainty. I don't know if I can trust that again. Not after everything." "You won't have to trust words," he said gently. "I'll prove it, day by day, moment by moment. You and Leo, you're my family now, and I'm not going anywhere." The tension in her shoulders eased slightly, and she nodded, small but certain. "Okay, I'll try." Days later, Leo's recovery was unmistakable. His cries turned to giggles. His weak arms began to grasp confidently, his body and spirit healing in tandem. Adrian watched Rose, amazed at the instinctive care, the patience, the love that seemed to flow effortlessly from her. Every day he felt the pull of gratitude, awe, and something tender growing quietly inside him. The hospital staff marveled at the transformation, noting that no medication or routine could have done what Rose's presence accomplished. Dr. Reyes smiled knowingly at Adrian one morning. "You see, Mr. Cole, some bonds are irreplaceable. You can't teach trust. You can't manufacture love. This was always between them." Adrian nodded silently, feeling the weight of truth settle over him. He had thought he was a protector, the provider, but now he realized that the true protection of his son required humility, recognition of others' sacrifices, and a heart open enough to forgive and trust. That evening, he found Rose gently placing Leo into the crib, brushing a strand of hair from his forehead. "He's doing so well," she whispered. "He owes it all to you," Adrian said, voice thick. "And so do I." Rose's lips quivered. I did what I had to, and I didn't do it for you. I did it for him, always for him." Adrian stepped closer, kneeling beside her. "I know, and I want to make sure you never feel like you're doing it alone again. Will you stay? Not just as his caretaker, but with me, as part of this family." Her eyes filled with tears, glimmering with hope, caution, and something more. I think I can. I think I want that too." The baby stirred, small arms reaching for both of them, a symbol of their fragile new connection. In that moment, the mansion's cold walls felt warmer. The fear, guilt, and sorrow of the past seemed to soften under the weight of trust and love. The following weeks at Colhis Manor were filled with quiet, steady healing. Leo thrived in Rose's care, his laughter now filling the nursery where once only wails had echoed. Adrian observed him often, standing at the doorway, watching Rose's gentle hands soothe the son, listening to her soft voice narrate little stories he would never understand fully, but that seemed to stitch together the fragile threads of their fractured lives. Adrian had never seen anyone care for his child the way Rose did. Every movement, every glance, every instinctive touch seemed perfectly attuned to Leo's needs. And with every passing day, Adrian felt a shift inside himself. A loosening of the armor he had built since Amelia's death, a thawing of the grief and guilt that had weighed on him relentlessly. One evening, as the sun painted the nursery gold, Adrian approached Rose. She was sitting on the floor, Leo in her lap, humming softly as he dozed. He hesitated, unsure if he could find the right words, but the truth pressed on him like a tide. "You've given him life again," he said quietly, kneeling beside her. "Not just his body, his spirit. And you've given me hope I didn't think I'd ever feel again." Rose looked up, her eyes reflecting the soft amber light. "I only did what I had to. I couldn't bear to see him suffer. Not like that. Not ever again." Adrian's voice faltered slightly. I know, and I was wrong. About everything. About judging you. About doubting you. I let pride blind me when all I should have done was trust you. Her lips trembled, but she didn't look away. It wasn't easy for me either, she admitted. Every time I looked at him, I saw the son I lost, and I had to make peace with that grief just to be able to care for him. Adrian's chest tightened. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. And now I want to make sure you don't have to face anything alone again. Will you stay? Not just as Leo's caregiver, but as part of this family, as someone I can trust, lean on, care for. Rose's breath caught. The vulnerability in his tone, the unguarded sincerity, cut through her defenses. She looked down at Leo, sleeping peacefully in her arms, and then back at Adrian. I think I can. I think I want to try. Adrian smiled, relief flooding him, a warmth he hadn't felt in years. Then we'll take it one day at a time. Together. Leo stirred, small arms stretching toward them both, and a soft giggle escaped his lips. Adrian lifted his son into his arms, feeling the tiny heartbeat against his chest, and then looked at Rose. See? He knows we're meant to be a family. Tears filled Rose's eyes, but they were not tears of grief. These were tears of hope, of healing, of a future she had thought impossible. She reached out and took Adrian's hand, intertwining their fingers. I believe it, she whispered. The days that followed were quieter, yet more profound than any Adrian had experienced. Leo's laughter became the soundtrack of the mansion, and the walls that had once echoed with silence and sorrow now hummed with life. Rose's presence brought an unexpected calm to Adrian's heart, a reassurance that love and trust could rebuild what grief had torn apart. One afternoon, as the three of them played in the garden, Adrian stopped and looked at Rose. The sunlight danced on her hair, and he realized he could no longer deny the feelings that had grown quietly but insistently. Rose, he began, voice unsteady, I want more than this. More than just sharing a house or caring for Leo. I want to share my life with you. If you'll let me. Rose blinked, caught off guard. Your life? She echoed softly. Yes, Adrian said, stepping closer. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I want you in it. Not just for Leo, but for me, for us, for a chance to build something real together. She looked at Leo, then back at Adrian, tears glistening in her eyes. I'm scared, she admitted, but I also think I'm ready to try. If we take it slow, if we trust each other. Adrian's chest ached with gratitude and hope. We'll take it slow, he promised, every step together, and we'll never take this for granted. Not again. The scene softened as Leo's tiny hands reached out for both of them, tugging them closer in a symbol of the bond that had grown stronger than grief, stronger than pride, stronger than fear. Adrian bent down and kissed the top of his son's head. You saved us, little man, he whispered. Rose smiled, brushing her cheek against Leo's, and then looked up at Adrian. We saved each other, she said softly. And in that moment, the mansion, once a place of sorrow, cold walls, and isolation, transformed into a home filled with warmth, laughter, and hope. The past, with its mistakes, grief, and misunderstandings, no longer defined them. A future of trust, love, and family stretched out before them, fragile yet undeniable. The final moments were quiet but powerful. Adrian, Rose, and Leo sat together on a bench in the garden, watching the sunset, a symbol of the new life they had begun to build together. Adrian reached for Rose's hand, holding it gently. Thank you, he said, voice low, for everything, for saving him, for saving me, for being here. Rose squeezed his hand, her own voice trembling with emotion. We're a family now, she said, and we'll face whatever comes next together. Leo giggled, tiny arms reaching toward both of them, and the three of them laughed, a sound that carried hope, love, and healing. The mansion had become a home once more. Love had triumphed over grief. Trust had replaced doubt. And in the quiet sunset, Adrian realized that this was only the beginning, a life rebuilt on compassion, courage, and the irreplaceable bond between them. Wow, what a journey. You're captivated by Rose and Adrian's journey, right? If this story moved you, Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment sharing your favorite moment. Follow us for more heartwarming stories that remind us all about love, hope, and the courage to forgive. I want to know what part of the story you found the most intriguing. Love can heal even the deepest wounds, and family is built through trust, compassion, and sacrifice, not just blood.